do you promise to govern the peoples of blah de blah, using statutes in Parliament agreed on, i.e. those are the tools we're going to use to govern. Now if you put a comma after that, and the law and customs of the same, that clarifies that the laws and customs are talking about the peoples which you're going to be governing. Okay? But with Elizabeth Lassalle, okay, she clarified it's our respective laws, not theirs, and therefore statutes in Parliament are merely company policy as to how they're going to deliver the promise of governing us to our laws and customs. So we create the laws then in the independent courts. We create public law. We create private law by contract and interaction, spoken, unspoken, whatever. When the dispute cannot be settled in private, we create common law precedent in the courts. And that there is where Her Majesty, the monarch, in Parliament, how we are represented. We create the law, and that there is how they're bound by the common law that we create.
So, Mark,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm hearing that obviously she's not even the correct descendant, and there's all
Who gives
this
a
war
hoot?
going on. So if she wasn't the monarch, and we didn't have
Who
the
gives a
House of
hoot?
Windsors, then surely none of this law actually stands up.
Who gives a hoot? She's government, and honestly, the oath is brilliant.
But
Because
never
she's
took
promised
the
to
oath.
govern us according to our laws. Okay? The problem is, she also said, and customs. We've just become accustomed to trusting these idiots.
Yeah.
We've become accustomed
So
to...
what I'm saying is, if there comes some truth that actually she isn't the monarch
Yeah.
and hasn't been that natural
Yeah.
descendant line, then where does our legal, lawful system stand? Can we not just scrap it all?
Well, okay, basically you have to... Legal fiction, straw man. Okay? What's your name?
Yeah.
Claire. There you go. There you've got a straw man. Claire. We can't operate without straw man. Whether it's a verbal straw man or a written straw man. We can't operate without it. It's absolutely part of interacting in society. Who governs doesn't really matter, so long as they do it fairly and justly.
No, but if we're trying to learn common law to put us in a better position going forward, and we're still saying that obviously because of the coronation oath that still stands,
Yeah.
but if it's proven that that was fraudulent,
Well, what do you
Where
mean
does that leave
fraudulent?
common
Because she
law?
wasn't sitting on a stone?
could be,
Or because she signed at the top
or
and
because they're
down at the bottom?
not the natural bloodline.
No. The Bill of Rights
Yeah.
changed the bloodline.
Okay.
Okay, that's what's important about the Bill of Rights. And those governing today are still of the bloodline from the Bill of Rights.
Okay. So the 1776.
Because basically, the Bill of Rights, what happened was they weren't happy with the king at the time. And so they cut a deal, 6 lords cut a deal with William and Mary to bring his armies over, get rid of the king, and you can become the new king. That's what happened. Okay, but they say, oh no, James ran away. I mean, abandoned his property, and under common law, when you abandon your property, somebody else can claim it. So what they're saying is, oh, he ran away, abandoned his property. There's an army there, he's got no army, they can kill him. The guy, of course you're going to run away. You're going to be dead otherwise. So the bloodline was changed with the Bill of Rights, and it's today's bloodline that still follows that.
Okay.
So that was a coup, just a power coup, based on violence. And today they're still governing under that. Okay? Now, was she sitting on a stone or wasn't she sitting on a stone? What difference does it make? Okay? Did she sign at the top or the bottom? What difference does it make?
Makes all the difference, though, don't it? 'Cause it's
It
the-
doesn't. It makes no
it's the
difference.
roots.
It's form.
So
Okay?
all about
If I sit down here and say, okay, I'll give you 10 quid for a cup of coffee, okay? Or if I stand here and say, I'll give you 10 quid for a cup of coffee, Or if I stand up there and say I'll give you 10 quid for a cup of coffee.
But you're not doing it out of deceit.
Yeah, you're not doing it correctly there.
No, you're not
No,
doing it
there's
out of
plenty
deceit.
Yeah, equity is about substance. Who gives a shit?
Well, if it's not on the founding, if the foundation's not strong, surely the whole thing is.
No, the foundation is equity. It makes no difference whether you're sitting on a stone or you're not sitting on a stone, or whether it's a sunny day or a rainy day. The substance is, what have I agreed to do?
Intent.
What is my intent? Okay?
There's a lawful contract, that's the substance.
The contract to contract, end
Yeah.
of.
But then aren't you,
But don't they
I'm bound
use
into
substance as
contract in the
interest?
law.
Hold on a second, sorry.
or aren't you bound into contracts when you're born as a British citizen?
How are you bound?
By your name.
How?
By
Did you agree with...
as when we was born,
How do you know you were... what's your birthday?
my birthday was 13/11/86 when I was
Sorry,
born.
that's hearsay evidence. Not admissible in court. Out.
Well, my mother and father was there.
Oh, so you're listening on hearsay evidence. You've got no first-hand evidence. You can't even prove your birthday.
I was Master Parsler when I was born, and
You were
now
what?
I'm Master Matthew Parsler when I was born. up to 16 years, and then I missed my opportunity, and then I became Mr. Parsler, which the state
Sorry,
attached to
I'm
me.
whatever I ask you to call me. What do you want to be called? Mr.
Matthew.
Master?
Matthew.
Matthew?
Matthew.
Okay.
Just Matthew, and
Yeah.
just not normal.
And
But that's not
call
how
me
the
Mark.
system processes me.
That
When,
is
when I go into
no,
the system, they
it's-
process me as Mr. Matthew Parsler.
If that was true what you're saying, okay,
Yeah.
people have been using those arguments for decades,
Yeah.
okay? There's not one court case, one judgment which affirms what that's saying. Doesn't that mean that maybe we should change our thinking?
Well, I don't know if you've followed like John Smith at the Common Law Court, and they've got quite far with all of this. I mean,
But they have no public enforcement of it.
but they do. They have peace officers. I was going to pay £400
So
to go and
so
do
why
this.
on earth haven't they gone and locked up all of these guys that they've made
Well,
judgments
at the
against?
minute we're building a community. This is a community. This is what
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
doing here. It's bringing people's awareness of the common law. But at the same time, we're bringing all over the world. Common Law Court International, it's called.
And it's the same problem all over the world.
Yeah, yeah.
Nobody can get any enforcement
No,
on it.
because the system that's been built up is fraudulent.
Correct, okay. So now explain to me what's the difference between John Law's common law courts or Canada's international common law courts and the Her Majesty's courts and tribunals. What's the difference?
One's governed by the people, one's governed by the state.
Which one's enforceable? And what makes the states any more legitimate than John Smith's, any more legitimate than Ken Anna's?
It's being honourable, being honourable to who you are.
Well,
And being honourable in your contracts. If I go out and do 100 miles down the road, I expect to go to prison for it or whatever.
yeah, no, I mean, I know what you're saying, okay? What you're saying is, oh, well, you feel that this system's better than this system, okay?
I love the system. It's just not run by very good people. We've got criminals
No,
and
I
murderers.
absolutely agree. That's
Article
exactly the
54.
problem. We've got a brilliant
Yeah.
system, but run by
Yeah,
idiots.
Article 51
Yeah.
of Magna
Yeah.
Carta was invoked in March because they became a tyrannical government.
Yeah,
They're restricted,
no,
they're in-
yeah, but again, okay, take Magna Carta 1215. Were you around in 1215?
No.
No. So what the hell's it got to do with you?
Well, was case law
Nothing
got
to
to
do
do
with
with
me.
that?
I wasn't here. Or I have no recollection of being here. It's irrelevant to me. It's got nothing to do with me.
But they'll still process you.
Hmm?
They'll still process you along that line there.
No, they won't. They make a claim and they tell you in the magistrate's court, they're not saying it's your name, they're saying you are bound by legislation and that's what we're going to prosecute you under.
Yeah.
That's what they're saying.
But I stand under the law, not legislation. So that's,
Yeah,
how do I
and
argue
in
that?
their courts what they say is prove that you stand under the law and not under legislation. Prove it.
That's where the I'm a living woman
Yeah.
comes into it, surely.
You don't have to prove it.
Hey, if it worked, somebody surely can show me some evidence of it.
Well, like John Smith
I've seen-
says,
it doesn't.
he's gone
John
to court.
Smith's been kicked out of the
Yeah.
courts numerous times.
Yeah, yeah.
He's represented people who all got locked up. It doesn't work what he's preaching. It just does not work. You know, I understand what he's trying to do,
Mm.
okay? And yes, we've got to look for alternative solutions. personally, I don't believe that's the right solution, because literally what you're saying is, here's John Rawls' common law courts, these are legit. Here's Ken Anna's courts, these are legit. Hang on, even those two, which one of those two are legit?
It's just different parties making claims, isn't it?
It's just claims,
I don't want to stand under one.
And I stand in my own rights,
Yeah.
and that's what I'm trying to teach people. I don't stand under John Smith's
No, I don't.
law or
But in the
anybody.
court, they'll say, "Can you prove you're a living man?" And you,
They can see you a living man.
they can't. No,
Of course they can.
They'll
Okay, let's
say
talk
to you,
about
"I
the
can't see you, I
Sesta
can't
KV
hear
Act,
you."
because this is where a lot of this, again, misconception comes from. Okay. The Sesta KV Act, you've got to understand the history and the context of what was there at the time. So at the time, London burned down, yeah? At the time, there were lots of, better off people who were raping and pillaging the rest of the world, which allowed them to have property in London and rent it out. Okay, they were overseas. Some of those people chose to stay overseas and just abandon their property. Some of those people, might have been killed overseas. Okay. However, when London burned down, okay, the whole bloody place burned down. You had some people that could prove, because of evidence, that yeah, I used to own this land or live on this land, and therefore I'm going to rebuild this land. So imagine every second one is rebuilt, okay? And then you've just got a pile of ashes on the rest of them, okay? At some point, something needs to get done, because if we end up with unclaimed land, eventually everything's unclaimed and nobody can live anywhere. Because somebody else was there. Okay? So the rationality behind the Sesta KV Act is, if you abandon your property, it will revert to the state to get recycled, because people need houses or land. And therefore, if you abandon your property and you don't come within 7 years, it reverts to the Crown, to society, and gets given to somebody that needs it. You don't need it, you're not here. So it's perfectly rational, the Sesta KV Act. Now, if you come back after 7 years and prove life, because you've proven you actually have a right to that piece of land, because society took it away from you, they now must compensate you. And that's what the Sesta KV Act says, if you read it. Okay? Which is perfectly rational. I don't understand how anybody can have issues with it. It's not like there's a pot of gold when you're born. I mean, I'd love to know who puts this gold into the pot anyway.
No, I don't stand.
But you see what I mean?
Yeah.
It's rational. The Sesta KV Act is extremely rational. Otherwise, there'll just be abandoned property all over the show. And where did the new people live? And so you get on the government website, if you intestate, if you do not make your will, okay, they advertise, has anybody got a claim on this land? And after a certain amount of time, it will revert to the Crown to recycle to society. So it's very rational. The system is extremely rational.
I like the system, it's just governed by murders.
The problem is people aren't doing their jobs.
No, that's right, yeah.
So the policeman, okay, we cross-examined with a COVID file a policeman who actually knew his oath, okay? And so they said, well, why did you breach Debbie's peace? Oh, regulation, blah, blah, blah. Okay, and what makes you believe regulation's law? Because your oath, you've just confirmed, is to act according to law. And you can see the guy just didn't get it. We actually got him to admit he didn't know the difference between legislation and regulation and law.
Yeah.
So we pulled out the Act of Settlement and said, are you aware of the Act of Settlement 1700? Because that defines law as my birthright. And the prosecutor said, oh, you can't use that, it's old. It's old. Okay? This is the level of ignorance we're dealing with.
Yeah.
And I think we absolutely agree.
You can see where it's
just insanity. And even worse, okay, We then said, well, how the hell does he know how to do his job then, which is according to law? Okay. And then the bench said, the magistrate said, we, the bench, are telling you he does not need to know the difference.
What?
That's what we're up against.
That is what we're up against.
Yeah.
Absolute ignorance at flipping all levels. The police don't know what they're doing. Parliament doesn't know what it's doing. Nobody knows what they're doing. They're just all fumbling in the dark there and just, you know, doing whatever until somebody says, hey, no.
And it's up to us, isn't it,
It's up to
important
us.
to make
Yeah.
them do what they're meant to do. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter whether you follow
Yeah.
John Smith or
That's
John
right,
Bloggs
yeah.
or anybody.
Yeah.
It's up to us to know what
Make
they
them
should be doing and make them do it.
And so what should
By
happen?
following the rules that they've written
Yeah.
down and
Yeah,
put
yeah.
themselves with.
Exactly. So what we should be doing is taking the judgments from the common law courts or any other court, that then becomes our complaint of a private criminal prosecution which goes to trial by jury. That's what we need to be doing, and that's what we started. We're gathering the evidence so we can do that. Okay? But, I mean, really, having read some of John Smith's judgments or the common law court's judgments, you're not going to get very far with those in a court of law.
I've just searched for what I've found, and is so far all I've found is that's the only one. I don't know of any other. I've only been searching
No,
for that
there's
too.
Kevin
Annett in
Right.
Canada.
Have you studied John Smith's stuff?
I've been through everybody's stuff. I've asked questions and got kicked off everybody.